Okay, now I'm hoping, is there anybody that wasn't at the keynote that took that time of hearing about wellness and said, I'm going to sleep in? So there's a few of you, there'll be a few references back, that's okay, because I wasn't sure. Sometimes there's a lot of people not there, so I want to double back. But part of the starting of this, and to help deal with how cold a lot of us are, let's just do a little movement. They're trying to deal with the hotels, but there's only so much. A little bit different, like some of you might come here this morning like this. I hope when you leave today there's a little bit more of this. You know that one of the things that we talked about, I want to start with from those of you that were there. It'll help some of those of you that weren't. What were some of the things that stood out this morning? What were just some of the things that stood out? Any messages, images, stories, things that it made you think about going on at work? What were some of the things that stood out? Negative energy from one particular person. So you'll notice that as we talk about things, you kind of go, oh, okay, there is that person, and this is this person, and why do I let this person suck it out of me and us all the time? Yeah. Tonic immobility. So that whole notion and that reality. Had you heard about it before?
No.
Okay.
I'm glad to know that there's an actual term for it because, I read a story about a woman who went through a rape and that was her response, and they let it go because she didn't have a reaction.
Tonic immobility is critical for our justice system to understand trauma-informed care and practice. I'm just finishing 22 oral histories. I'm on my 22nd with survivors of child sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. And the reason is that I'm going to be writing a staged reading, not only based on their stories, but the subset of them that will be the cast will be performing them. And it's based on Ping Chong and Theater of the Oppressed, and it's for people that are at a spot in their life where they really want to lend their voice to social change and prevention. Like they've done their work and they're ready and they want to do that. But one of the things that has come up in every single interview was that people describe these different times of that. And so it's really wonderful to go back and say, actually a lot of times when I ask you these questions about what happened, I don't expect that your memory is necessarily going to be linear. It might be snapshots and they're like, oh, yeah. Or that, you might have found there were times when this happened to you and you weren't be able to do the things, it's like those bad dreams. We've all had those dreams, right? Where you can't scream, you can't walk, you can't move. It's like, but that's real. And that's called tonic immobility. So it's those pieces. So what else stood out from, yes?
Being proactive. A lot of times we're reactive, especially with what we do. We're always fussing after things.
Yes.
But to just be proactive about solutions matter, of course.
Okay.
And I like that circle.
Being proactive and the circle thing. You're going to get more of the circle thing. So being proactive and having the circle being really key. And how difficult it is. I mean, most places, their wellness models are, oh yeah, if people are having problems, they can go see employee assistants. And it's like, well, okay, let's think about that a little bit, okay? What else? I saw some hands, yes? The protective factors. We know the protective factors in young people, but we haven't thought about those enough in ourselves and what they are and how to be cognizant of those and build those up and credit them. And how much you have it in your house. Yes, you got one of those little gold star moments where you went, yeah, we got this. And I'll tell you where that's so important is leadership change, people change, and all of a sudden you don't have it anymore. And if you take it for granted, you're like, it's different and it can slide away. It's like physiologically, it takes us, this is so unfair, it takes us like 8 to 10 weeks to fully build a muscle. When we're working out and training in 2 weeks to lose it, I'm like, oh, this is just so not right. But I think there is something like that we build up, we reinforce, we do this, because you don't just have training and then it happens. You got to try it, practice it, reinforce it, refine it, renew it, and a lot of times we don't appreciate it, so that's really key. Somebody else, yes?
I think for me it was, as a instructor, it's important to take a breath. Because first we're seeking money. And then we got the money and let's go. And it's all about numbers and money and all that. So celebrating the success is by taking a pause in the action and really planning and going forward that way instead of always in that.
Pause, take an action, take a breath. And I'm repeating these because it's just being recorded, so we want others to get the wisdom of this. Yes?
I think lately I've been thinking a lot about being more present and staying mindful. And so stood out, but I think it's
be intentional about being present and actually practice mindfulness, which isn't just a, you got to really, that's work. But some people's life work is to be mindful.
What stood out for me was really the need for practitioners, people working with families in crisis, really develop that own support network and how that can be constructed and how important that is.
Okay, so professionals who do this work intentionally develop their support network. Make sure it's indeed a support network. Some of us have, I'm modifying, you didn't say this, but some of us have support networks that aren't really supportive, that kind of feed the negativity or bring us down or are really judgmental. And so we really need to step back and go, I might love you, might respect you, but this isn't quite where I'm getting my right support. The grief burnout, just never enough. You can't do enough. We can't stop it. Well, you're going to have more time to talk about this, but I wanted to get a sense, and I wanted to help the folks that weren't there maybe hear some of those things. Now I want you to do a little bit of this with me, okay? Let me see if I've got this on these slides. Yeah, I do. So, if you disagree with the statement, then you just sit, okay? If you're not sure, sometimes you raise your hand. If you're really sure and you don't want to stand, you can do this. If you want to stand, stand. Do not stand on the chairs if you strongly agree, because that's not safe, okay? And this will just give me a scan of the room. And you don't get to qualify the statement. You don't get to go, well, what do you mean by it? So you go, what does this word and term mean to you? And answer accordingly. Because really that's part of this issue, right? Is that different things mean different things to us. So let's start with, I do what I need to do to take professional care of myself. If that's super true, I want to see both stands, or I want to see you standing. If it's somewhere in the middle, it's a hand. If it's not, it's down. Okay? I've got the lens of the room. I'm not sure how much the camera has the lens of the room. All right. Let's see if it's a change. Now see, we didn't have any standards, so then you can see. Some of you could get really warmed up with this. I do what I need to do to take personal care of myself. I do what I need to do to take personal care of myself. Okay, we had more movement there. All right. Next one. My job often affects me personally. Okay? All right. I am able to stay true to my core values when I do my job. I am able to stay true to my core values when I do my job. Yeah, you can do that too. That's okay. Okay. I seldom work overtime. Okay? My workload is an issue for me. Okay? My life partner, or former life partner, likes hearing about my work. Yeah, you can really down on the ground, yeah, you can. Okay. This is really interesting to do in your workplace or with couples, by the way. Now, this is really internal, because think about how different this word means to you. I get the respect I feel I deserve in doing my job. I get the respect I feel I deserve in doing my job. Okay? Another one that means many layers, many places we get respect. This is true too, in terms of rewards. I am adequately rewarded for the work that I do. Laughter was not on the list of options. Okay. Now this is tougher sometimes if your supervisors are here, but let's just go for it. My workplace is fair. My workplace is fair. Okay? There's a strong sense of community in my workplace. Some of you are getting a lot of good warm-up exercise here. Okay? I have the control I need to do my job. Okay? Now I asked you this in the other room, but let's see it here. I have high expectations for myself. All right? I have personally experienced being burnt out. right? I am able to focus on what I get done and what I have success in more than what I don't get done and don't feel I have success in. I am able to focus on what I get done and what I feel I have success in more than what I don't get done and don't feel I have success in. It's your attention and energy. Where does it go? I generally handle workplace conflict in a constructive way. Okay? I have experienced 3 or more losses this year. It's all different kinds of losses. I've experienced 3 or more losses this year. Okay? A 15-minute massage a day would help my overall well-being. Okay. Some like massage, some don't, but I am a trained masseuse, but maybe that'll be next year. Okay? So, there's a reality that we want to start with ourselves and that this is important. And I realize I have 2 completely different ways to do these this time. I have 2.5 hours of material that I could just stand and present. I have a lot of activities. So there's a lot more information, but I want to also do some of the activities and get you in this, because I want you to actually do these. Some of these things are things you already do. You do them really well. It's a reminder. It's take that in. It's actually take it in and experience it. There'll be some time to actually practice some of this work so you can really take it back and do it, and I can tell you a little bit more about it. So this first one, I want you to, it's going to be a combination of the importance of gratitude, which Oprah, like a lot of things, kind of brought back the importance of gratitude. Some of us know this because of a spiritual practice. Some of us do this naturally with our children, or did when they were younger. At night, you kind of go, what are we grateful for today? What good things happened? Or you check back in with what was most fun about the day. But I just had to remind my son when I saw a Facebook post about his boring college job that all he could do because they let him do his homework at it, because that's okay. If it's not busy, it's an info desk, and if there's not stuff at night, then perhaps he might want to think about what he's posting on Facebook, that he's grateful to have a job, and that it's one that allows him to do his homework at it. Thank you very much. Like, let's remember. And we all can get into these spots where it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was bad. Let's step back and remember that. So I'm going to do a combination of a gratitude and a breathing exercise. And normally I would say put your hands down, but people are like keeping themselves warm. So do whatever you need to do. Hug yourself, cuddle up to the person next to you, but get comfortable. And it's better to uncross your legs. On the other hand, it's cold, so you might need it to just kind of hang on there. And I want you, and if you're okay with closing your eyes, that's great. If that feels uncomfortable, keep them open. So I want you, this is going to be the breathe in from the diaphragm, really breathe. Then I'm going to have you breathe in to a count. I'm going to have you hold it, and then I'm going to have you it out to a count. Now, some of you have trouble with lung stuff. Just do whatever you can do that's comfortable for you, because I don't want anybody going, so let's do that. Okay, but this is a deep breath in. Hold it. And breathe out. Deep breath in to about at the count of 4. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. Out with a whoosh. And I want you to breathe, continue to breathe fully. Continue to feel that flow. Be mindful, actually, of your breath as it comes in and as you exhale. Just be mindful. If you lose it, that's okay. Just come back to it. But while you are just breathing, I want you to imagine the gratitude that can arise in you. If you're distracted and thinking about your to-do list or whatever else, when you exhale, just try to blow that distraction away. As a gratitude arises, express a thanks, just thanks. So, a day without physical pain. Thank you. A friend who listens with compassion. Thank you. The stranger who allowed me to merge during busy traffic. Thank you. Having a paycheck. Thank you. The ability to sit here in this room. Thank you. The memory of a time with friends. Thank you. Being able to support a cause I believe in. Thank you. Having a few moments of solitude and silence. Thank you. Now, together, let's breathe in 4. Hold it. 3, 2, 1, and exhale with a whoosh. Exhale completely. One of the things about breathing is, as you know, it's one of those things we take for granted. We do it all the time. Except when I used to prepare children for court, one of the things I would tell them is, remember to breathe. Because what happens is when we get scared, you're there and all of a sudden you realize you don't breathe. It seems something that is so unconscious we notice only when we're really stuffed up and we can't do it, we don't access it, that it's really that. And it's not only to take a breath when you're angry to kind of get a sense and to get a grounding, it's very literally that rejuvenation that can happen in a very short amount of time. You know, is it really going to be harmful to be 1 minute delayed while you literally get grounded and do some breathing versus what that is going to renew? That you think about that as you do with your center, you're mindful of the feelings that you can have. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to judge them. It's just interesting. I'm mindful. This is what I'm feeling. This is where this is. A lot of us are fixers, so we have to jump there right away and just go, that's what it is. Let it wash over me. Let me feel it. Let me breathe. Let me appreciate this life force in this moment to get grounded. Let me do that. We can all do that, and it doesn't cost us anything. So we can do it as individuals. We can also, some places have actually instituted morning or noon or break time breathing circles, mindfulness circles. Short, 10 minutes, but we're gonna ground. And it's very funny to me sometimes. I don't have time to breathe. It's like, well, actually, no, you really do. It's kind of one of those essential things. It's good to do. It's good to practice, and it's good to think about. I also want to go, with your mental hygiene is another frame. You know, there's different frames out of this morning that work for people. I want to give you a few more. Michael Benet talked about this. And, you know, we all have our hygiene, and hopefully we have pretty good hygiene. But there's also the mental hygiene. Like, what do we do to take care of it? I thought it was really interesting. This is having been raised by a Marine who then became a police officer, SWAT team officer. I never, ever thought of Marines as really taking on the concept of self-care, even with all the science of post-traumatic stress disorder. Which, you know, what's changing a lot of these organizations is we've had the science of post-traumatic stress disorder for a long time. What's different now is we have the brain science, so you can actually see the effect on the brain. So this isn't just touchy-feely words, which I'm using that with. It's really sad that that's so dismissed. But it is because that reality, the feelings, and the mental health is so key, but that literally this is an effect on the brain. So what are the elements of renewing? I had slides that we don't have. I understand we don't have internet access, so I'm not going to be able to show you a couple of the pieces. But Judith Herman, a trauma specialist, says an ordinary response to atrocities is to banish them from memory. And there's a cost to caring. When helpers lose their faith and fervor, it paralyzes their work. And there is what Baranowski calls a silencing response. I cannot hear more. I'm saying, tell me more about that, Lisa. And I'm going, tell me more about that, Lisa. And Lisa's going to pick up, she doesn't want to hear about more. And I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad clinician. I just can't. The sponge is full. The sponge is full and now it starts spilling out. So we can manipulate that silence completely unintentionally. And even if you're a crisis center, you shouldn't be in crisis, right? Because part of this is about we're exposed to crisis. So we need to know how to manage the crisis. Now, organizationally, there's 6 sources of burnout and 6 that have been documented in research, and that's overload of work, not having enough, go back to your stand-ins. So give yourself credit where your credit is due here, because these are things you've got going for you. If you don't have them, if there's not a work overload, that if there is sufficient rewards, because this is saying insufficient rewards, and it's not just money. Money is certainly one of those, but recognition. There's a lot of, how do people feel rewarded and supported? Does it feel fair? Is there a breakdown in the community? Do some people feel like some teams are treated differently than others? Is there a value conflict between you really value treating human beings like this, and with the time and caseload you have, you can't do it? That's an example of a value conflict. You value respect, and you're so stressed you can't always bring it up in you. And you don't have the control you need to do your work. So those are organizational issues that then get, how do we build sustainable workloads, help people with a sense of choice and control, a sense of community, fairness, respect, and justice. Interesting, we're working for justice and social change, and yet we often don't say we have justice in our workplace. We even have a discussion sometimes about what would that look like and feel like. That this is that. And that our work is really not only meaningful, but we feel that it's valued. We feel that value that's there. So remember, this was part of the keynote, is what's coming at me, really coming from me. But I want to give you a few more things, and we're going to practice a circle dialogue. So I want you to have a few of these more under your belt as you go into that, too. Wayne Mueller wrote Legacy of the Heart. And he looked at self-care, and he asked the question that I mentioned this morning about, what are we hanging on to that gets in the way of our health and well-being? So some of this is, let's look at it. Not all of these most of us have 1 or 2 or 3 of these, but some won't have any. And for some of us, we struggle. What we're hanging on to is that we hang on to our pain. Now, you may know clients who fit into these, too. You may have colleagues. We hang on to that, and we hang on to our anger. Again, part of that is always being prepared to defend ourselves. But it's like, what would it mean to let go of that pain? And a lot of times we get into my pain's greater than yours. My history was more crappy than yours. My circumstances are worse than yours, which is really a mindset we've got to look at with doing this work. What are we hanging on to? Because Dr. Benson, early on with stress, talked about whether our fears are real or imagined. We actually lower our resistance to disease, and we bring about those illnesses we fear. Now, how many of you have ever noticed, I hope I'm not the only one in the room, I'm assuming I'm not, that you're working really hard, right? We overwork so we can go on vacation, right? You're working like crazy so you can go on vacation. The vacation comes, and what happens? You get sick. Because you can, finally relax. So, and forgiveness is that, can we let ourselves feel happy? Does something get in the way of just letting ourselves have joy and happiness and that sense of this? And then I love this definition of fear and faith. I'm sure some of you have seen this in other contexts, but it's like genuine faith. One definition of that is the ability to trust what is fundamentally true within ourselves. To trust what is in our mind, our heart, and our spirit, and use that as a centering response. Use that to center. And that it's a way of being, and safety. Safety is not just not being in fear, but we've got to have the presence of something else. We've got to have that presence of that faith in being able to trust what's in our mind, heart, and spirit. And I love these things. I kind of surround myself with different quotes. But fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you in better living conditions. So, you know, really looking at what are the conditions we're in. And belonging was another one of his. So if you're hanging on to, I don't belong anywhere, this shows up in teamwork. So we're supposed to have teams, but it's not unusual you will have somebody who just doesn't feel like they belong. You can be a highly trained professional, but this is old stuff. And if you don't ever really trust you belong, then you're constantly looking at everybody through that lens. So if you lose that sense of belonging, the other part of that is we tend to grab onto anything and anyone, and usually something not healthy, in order to belong. Now some of us, and this is notorious in human services, hang on to scarcity. There's never enough. There's not enough time, there's not enough resources, there's not enough skills, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. And that's our whole center, our whole lens, our whole being, our whole energy, and I can feel it when I talk about it and feel it and get stuck there. And if we're always focused on too little, then we can never appreciate what we have. And we all have probably experienced not appreciating what we have until one chunk of that's gone. I could complain about my job a lot and how little my paycheck is, but boy, when I lose it, I sure like it a lot better. I can complain about different things in my body and my body image. Then I get really sick and struggle with cancer and realize, you know what, those little marks on my legs weren't so bad. Let's put it in perspective. So, you know, how do we appreciate what we have? Chesterton has this great quote that there's two ways to get enough. One is to get more and more and more, and one is to desire less. So what do we have, and how can we appreciate that we even have these services? I was just listening earlier this week, I was at another conference, and there was an immigration lawyer, and she was talking about being in Peru and El Salvador and Guatemala, and in a number of the areas she was in, and using all of her different, she's Spanish from Spain, and she was using all of her different language. She realized there was no term for advocate because there weren't advocates. There were other trained professionals, but somebody that would really advocate for you. So we complain about not having enough advocates, but we do have a concept of advocacy. And I love Thoreau's comment that I make myself rich by making my wants few. I probably support 3M a fair amount with stick-up notes because I keep having to put this one up because I'm not so good at it. It's a Sufi statement about always ask before you speak these three questions. Are these words true? Are the words kind? Are the words necessary? They might not be some of those, you know, they might be necessary. But are they? Why are we saying what we're saying? Are we spreading negativity? Are we spreading rumors? Do we really need to be talking about this? Do I need to be saying this to this person? Do I need to be saying it to them in the way that I am? St. Francis, I'll borrow freely from multiple religions and cultures, said, while you are proclaiming peace with your lips, be careful to have it even more fully in your hearts. So another thing some of us have that we hang on to that gets in the way of our happiness and well-being is that sense that our pain is so special. And Bertrand Russell said, one important sign of an approaching nervous breakdown is the belief that one's work is terribly important. Now, our work is important and we see this as a protective factor. But you know what? When we get caught up that, you know, the world couldn't revolve if we weren't in it, it can. You know, too often it takes us, and I was very, very humbled I had mentioned earlier that amidst the other prevention work around abuse that I was doing, we also had an HIV/AIDS play when we ran this theater, and we also had people living with us that would be actors coming into town to be in the shows. And in this case, there was 2 guys that were living with AIDS and one that was near the end of his life. And we had made a piece, Amazing Grace, and it was 1986. Drew and Archie were the first. They were from New York and lived in New York, but were with us temporarily in Minnesota, and they were, NPR followed them for a year on what it was like to live with AIDS, and he was one of the first patients with AZT, and that was a treatment, so they were just tracking that. And so we were always focused on Archie. We were focused on his health, we were focused on his food, what we could do, and what we do, and he goes, you know, and he's a very spiritual, very grounded, very loving person, but he said, you know, someday I just wish that it wasn't always about me. You know, I want to be able to care for other people and do that. Well, being the accommodating soul that I am. The next morning I run. That's one of the things I do to deal with stress. I'm putting on my gear, I'm going out to run, and I turned to say goodbye and I tipped over. And I couldn't get up. And I had an inner ear thing, I can't remember what it's called, but when I went in, when they carried me in, it turned out they said, well, it'll only be 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, every time I turn my head, I'm going to tip over. Like, this is not on my schedule. This is so not on my schedule. And, you know, and it was, and Archie was talking to me and said, you know, honey, you need to slow down. And your body's slowing you down for you. Like, you just got to do this. And if you're not going to pay attention, your body's going to tell you, and your body's going to force you to pay attention. And then he said, and I'm like, oh, I got all this, and it's on my schedule, you know, production, blah, blah, blah. And he said, talk to the hand. It was before I talked to the hand. He said, if not now, when? If not now, when? And I said, you know, I was with him when he died, and I thought, so often, we don't do that. We don't slow down. Like, I could take time to be with you when you die. But how often we don't take time to live? You know, suddenly we all get, oh, we got to stop because of this death happened. So it is one of those things that, I like Roshi's comment, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, in the expert's mind there are few. And that difference between when we're open to possibilities versus when we shut down those channels. This one is a little hard for me. I don't know if it's hard for you. You are an ordinary child of the earth, perfectly unexceptional and perfect the way you are. Like, we have put so much pressure on the exceptional that somehow then takes away the value of all of us. And always that standard we have to live up to. So here's another one. If you hang on to this, and some of us do, some of us just had those families where the only way you were heard was to be loud and to have a lot of drama, and we like our drama. And we don't quite trust it when things are calm. And in fact, I don't trust it enough that I'm going to just do the frenzy, right? I can't cope. I can't deal. I'm not doing this. So if you're hanging on to this and you're not trusting the simplicity and calm, you might have to think about that addiction to drama. And of course, by now you clearly know this is one of mine, the busyness. Why are we always moving so fast? What's going to happen if you slow down? What are you trying to justify? In that speed, do we lose our capacity to just listen and really, really breathe? Thomas Merton, I'll read you the middle part. Thomas Merton said busyness is a form of violence. And again, it was a friend who kindly came up to me and said, Cordelia, dear honey, you know, you do violence prevention work, but you never slow down. I want you to read this. And the centerpiece is to allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone and everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. Now another one that some of us hang on to is disappointment and non-attachment. What I mean by that is, and you know these people, you might be one of these people, I expect the worst. Always expecting the worst. And some people really hang on to that because then they think they won't be as disappointed. But what can happen is that we poison those really wonderful, gentle moments where we just don't see them, we can't appreciate them, we're just so into expecting that negativity. This says, I bargain everything that way, can't go wrong that way. So, as another way of saying that, I borrowed that from Laura's book. Laura Vanderbook has a bunch of comics in it. Another thing we hang on to is mindfulness and habit. And that is focusing on the fear and danger. I like this Chinese proverb, you've probably heard it before. If we don't change the direction we're going, we're likely to end up there. So think about it. I've heard both Einstein and AA, I mentioned it in the morning, but the tendency to do the same behavior over and over each time, expecting a different result. And this last one, the longer we wait to become fully alive, the more something vital within us slowly dies. And how often do we say, after this, and after this, and after this? Again, the time I was confronted by my colleagues, when it was like, take a look at this stuff. You know, if you hear yourself saying, yeah, it'll be better next month, in 3 months, in 6 months. I just got to get through this. Now, we all have those things. There's nothing wrong with that. That's real. But if there's always a thing after that thing, then you're in denial. And you're floating against the waves. So, you know, this is another way to look at the insanity. When we're constantly speaking, we can only hear what we've already concluded. So another one of those things we might be hanging on to that gets in the way of our health and well-being is that sense of isolation and not letting ourselves get too close because we don't want to lose it. And we don't trust it, and we don't have that sense. So, you know, we can really protect ourselves against a caring connection. And what do we know is the main protective factor? Caring connections. Dalai Lama said, the core of all healing can be found in the practice of loving kindness. So our own healing is that kindness not only to others, but that compassion and kindness to ourselves. I did that this morning. And I talked about the importance of being intentional, and I want to come back to that here with a few other points about how do we not add to the trauma that we already see. That's Laura Van-Derlipsky's trauma stewardship, when we're always in reach. But, you know, I talked about this with a different image this morning of technology, but I wanted to show you the words of Charles Duell from 1899. Everything that has been invented has been invented. And think of the transformation with technology, and think of the impact on our lives. So one of the things I want you to think about is how technology helps you and hurts you, and how it helps and hurts your organization. Because relaxation is crucial to becoming creative. That's not Cordelia Anderson. That's Isaac Newton. And I realized for myself when I was running a theater program, I'd run for 15 years, a program I identified with and everything, but I couldn't be creative. It was like in one of the most creative settings I went. I was so fried. And there was no way to do it, and I had that was one of my transformative moments, 21 years ago, where I left and started a different business. So I'm not encouraging. In fact, one person said, great idea of your workshop. I decided to quit. I was like, no, this isn't necessarily the outcome. Hopefully we don't get to that spot. Sometimes it really is the time to say this relationship's over. There's no way I can be healthy in this context. And sometimes it's time to take action. You know, one who has hope has everything, and hope is an action verb. It's not a passive thing. So I also want to think about what gives you hope. And just let me ask you, just pop up. This is popcorn that you talk to each other about. Popcorn, pop up. What gives you hope? Let's put out words. I want you to just feel them. So give me some words. Hope. What gives you hope? It might be a person. It might be named. You don't have to explain it. Just kids. Prayer. Change. Laughter. Peace. Progress. What? Waking up. It's a good day. I woke up. I'm alive. we had a name, yes. But, oh, can't you just look at those little ones and just smile and carry that picture, and there's hope. There's hope. This is why we do this work. So it is a good exercise to think about what gives you hope and surround that yourself with it. I'm going to skip the culture because I want to get into, I love this one. I don't know how it started either. All I know is it's part of our corporate culture. So if there's things that are part of your culture that aren't really helping anymore, you might need to look at that. And if there's things that used to be good and people got sick of them and you dropped them and you realize, you know what? That's kind of taken a little bite at our soul. We aren't quite as fun, we aren't quite as engaged, we aren't quite connected. We need to go back to that. And we need to build those supports, the social support and the psychological supports. Anna Salter, do any of you know Anna Salter? She's if you work with sex offender stuff at all, she does some of the work with some of the toughest of the tough, and also said, even in these settings, that we can be healthy, even dealing with really, really violent and dangerous people in prison settings. We can go to be open. What we got to do, we got to be open about the distress and empower and be clear about our expectations and restore after harm. The ringing in your ears, I think I can help. And I say this because sometimes it's like, if you normalize it, of course we're going to feel like this. Look at what we deal with. This is the ocean. Remember that one from this morning? So instead of working against it, how do we really think about that and bring it in? So I had a few over. Peter Drucker, business guru, said that most organizations within a few years of their existence lose sight of their mission. They become focused on doing things right, not doing the right thing. So I ask you that with your organization. If you're still at a spot where, no, you know what? This is what we're supposed to do, but it gets in the way of doing the right thing. So how do we get around it? Are we so busy with doing things right that we've lost sight of doing the right thing? Is this what's right by kids, by families, by the community? Or is this what's right by some bureaucratic system that makes no sense? It makes no sense. It's not only costing us dollars, it's costing us our souls. Like, we can't do this, and we're going to speak up and out about it. Like, it was just really, I'll say yesterday I was at another training with Kanaka Center where they were reminding us, which is positive youth development, were reminding us about the importance of frames. You'll look at framing this afternoon, and Ben may talk about this too, that the reason that a lot of people have, first of all, they don't say teenager anymore, because what does teenager conjure up for a lot of adults? Kind of a scary negativity image we had back one of our plays was, teenager coming soon to a neighborhood near you. It's like this. And then we went from teenager, so we got that at-risk youth. Well, what's that conjure up? And even to get grants, even people who don't want to do that and say, we don't want to focus on what's wrong with youth and that we are the ones to fix them. You've got to do this for the grants. Well, we're not going to change that if we don't start saying, we're going for this grant, we deserve it. But by the way, we don't use that term. Because we talk about all youth. And we talk about all youth and the development that they are going through, which makes sense for some of the behaviors that you're seeing. Because they need to experiment with their identity. They need to be at a point where they're exploring their feelings and exploring their values. That's what you're seeing. So let's talk about that. And you know what? We are not going to stop risk-taking. That is what they need to do. It's what we did for those of us that can remember. What our job as adults is how do we help them do that in a safer way? But again, where is our energy and where we got trapped, and are we really not buying into that negativity? So now what we're going to do is shift gears a little bit. Shoot, I thought I had the questions in here, which is why I was flipping quickly and didn't. So I'm gonna get you into a group. I'm going to give you the guidance. Now what you're going to do here is, I'll give you the guidelines very quickly. So we have till noon, right? 11:30. So what I need you to do as quickly and non-verbally as possible is form a circle, form a group, move the chairs around of about 6 people. Okay, so let's do this really quickly. I'm going to be having you practice circles, so get in this. The reason to try and get close to a circle, and you can just move some chairs behind you if that's so you can all see each other. And you don't want it smaller than 6 or you're going to be done real soon, and you don't want 20, so you can have a little bit more or less, but let's get you in these groups. Do we have somebody that needs partnership? Do we have like 3 people and 3 people someplace? Okay, if we've got only 3, then we might want to break you up and have you each add to a group. Okay. Now, I'm going to move these up and give you guys a little bit of space so you're not on top of your buddies there, so you can move a little bit away from the next group so you can hear each other. Now I need a volunteer in each group to be the keeper, and I'll tell you what you do as the keeper. Okay, keeper, raise your hand. A volunteer quick in each group. Keeper the circle. Got one there, got one here, got one here. Keeper, keeper, a keeper. I need a keeper in that. Volunteer. Got one there, need one there. All right. Now, hopefully at least one of you has something to write with, because these are the questions that were supposed to be on my PowerPoint. Okay. The first, just write these down first. Don't start with these first. So the first thing is. Oh, we need a pencil and paper.
Wait a minute.
Okay, getting that? So I'll tell you while you're getting ready there, before I tell you the questions. I also want the one who's the keeper. The keeper, this is a 4-day circle trainer. If you're not a trained circle keeper, you go through these processes. You sit in circle because indigenous people around the world, circle is not a tool, it's a way of life, it's a way of being. I've been through lots and lots and lots of circle training and do that, and I use circles with a lot of different things. I have a collection of talking pieces, which I didn't bring on the airplane, but it does sometimes make for very interesting things when they're going through my pile of redwood or rocks or beanie babies. So the keeper, sometimes improv, you take a talking piece that's something of meaning. Even a pen can be something of meaning because it helps you write your words. It helps give you the power of expression. And when you do a circle, a lot of times, although this is a really narrow point, so I'm just going to not ask you to do all this. We're not prepared in the same way. Just so you know, if you're doing circles, the keeper is the one who has the questions ready, has prepared those, and I'll tell you what those are. The keeper can answer first, especially if the person next to you looks like a deer in headlights when you ask the question. You answer first to model, or you can ask it, go around, answer it last, or you're keeping circle. You're not answering, you're not summarizing, you're not processing for people. You might just keep it going. Also, you do not get, when you remember something else you want to say, to grab back the talking piece. And if you want to pass, you have every right to pass, but you don't get to 3 people down, take it back because you're ready now. So you can just say pass, and participating in circle can be by being present and mindful and listening. I want you to really practice. The only person who can talk is the one with the talking piece. Okay? So the rest of you listen. Because what happens is by the time you get it, you might be thinking of something completely different than what you were going to say at the time then. So you've got a talking piece. Talking pieces in your future can be something of value or meaning to you. So the keeper can say, hi, this is my name, this is where I work, and this is your first thing. And the talking piece we're using for the circle is because in that short time you can set values. And you tell something about yourself. So this is one I carry with me all the time. It is a symbol of restorative, transformative justice, but the beauty of this is it's sometimes nice to have things you can go like this with while you're talking, depending on the nature of the circle. But I like that because sometimes we can push things way out of whack. And it's nice to know that we can bring them back together. And in the symbology of this, you have a life journey, and it's bumpy. This is not a nice, smooth one. And we go and we get to a spot where we think, okay, I'm here. I've learned a lot of stuff. I'm where I want to be. I got it. Not done. You gotta go back and give back. And that's a bumpy road too. So you got your talking piece. First thing, this is my name, this is where I work, this is the talking piece, this is why I chose it, why it has meaning to me. The next thing is we are asking each person to say, in turn, their name, where they work, and answer something that stood out either from this morning's keynote or this workshop so far. That's question number one. Each person answers that. Next question is, so the first one, your name, where you work, something that stood out so far. Next question is something that you do really well to take care of yourself and something you need to work on. And the third one is something that is really good in your organization. It might be a practice, it might be a policy, it might be a norm or expectation, and something that needs work. Okay? So, keep in mind, person that's facilitating, if somebody still has a talking piece 20 minutes from now on the first one, you have the right to, we don't interrupt, but you might have the right to say, gee, we'd like to, really good, we'd like to hear from everybody. Everybody that's talking, remember that we want to hear from everybody. And remember that we really only have about 20 minutes to lunch. So these are going to be really bubble to the top, really bubble, not deep. You know, you might think of, like when I said hope, and we did that intentionally, like some key concepts, some key pieces. You're not going to be able to go deep with the story. So that's what we're going to do. Let's start. I need you to wrap up. Know this, that you're at lunch and you're here. Keep the discussion going. I want to, a couple of you are just wrapping up your comments, but I want to say for the rest of you that think about Circle as a tool for prevention. I firmly believe in this for community building. There's a lot more to it to make it work right. Facilitators, keepers really need to understand the difference between being a Circle keeper and a facilitator or a therapist. You know, so there's part of that. The talking piece is a wonderful way to let one person talk at a time. And there's such, like breathing, there's such a delightful value to listening, to really listening. That's your only job. You're not thinking about what you're going to say next, you're listening. And it's so I use them not only when there's a problem, but to build community and to have discussions like what can we do to build on creating a healthier workplace. Would be something to take back and do. I want to tell you, if any of you, there are handouts for these things. I'm not sure where those handouts are, probably online and things, but if you want more, my website also is there. It's on the handouts, but it's www.cordeliaanderson.com. Cordelia, C-O-R-D-E-L-I-A, Anderson with an S-O-N. And I do have a few of my cards which show you one of the things we do for self-care. My office is out of my house, and it's surrounded by ponds which we built. So I literally do, I like the hard labor. I love the sound of water, and part of the deal was to, wherever you are, you hear water. And so there's ponds all around the house. So there's a picture of that, and then there's also a picture of the latest development, which is a hobbit house over the back pond, which is a place where you can go meditate, breathe, read. But I want to leave you with a closing reading. Any of you interested in these readings on my website, besides having a lot of handouts, there's one thing that says presenter information that says readings. You can get a lot of these readings. So I have copies of them if you think they would be useful. It really helps to open circle with either a story about your talking piece or a reading, and also close with that. But this is what I want to leave you with. And it's a story that is very powerful to me because I spend a lot of time in airports. And I am not an easy crier, but I'm telling you, there's something about people saying goodbye in airports and saying hello that, you know, it's those things that get me. But this was a story, and it's a guy who was sitting. He was a middle-aged man, and he's watching this elder man say goodbye to his adult daughter that he thought was probably about his age, middle age. And he watched them, and it was very sweet. And and they both said, I love you, I wish you enough. The guy's like, I wish you enough. I wish you enough. And they both said this to each other. He's really interested in this. He really wants to ask the elder man. The elder man is like clearly trying to not cry after he watched his daughter leave. And then he turns to the middle-aged man and says, did you ever say goodbye to somebody knowing that it was your last goodbye, you wouldn't see him again? And He said, as a matter of fact, I was here for my father's funeral. And then they both, had their moment. He said, but do you mind if I ask you about that? I wish you enough. And at that point, the elder man lit up and said, let me tell you about that, because that's a tradition in my family. That's a wish handed down from other generations. My parents used to say it to everyone. It means that you're wanting the other person to have a life filled with just enough good things to sustain them. And then he turned around and said, I wish you enough sun to keep your attitude bright. I wish you enough rain to appreciate the sun more. I wish you enough happiness to keep your spirit alive. I wish you enough pain so that the smallest joys in life appear much bigger. I wish you enough gain to satisfy your wanting. I wish you enough loss to appreciate all that you possess. I wish you enough hellos to get through those final goodbyes. So for today, I wish you enough. Thank you.